we have another very special guest for you. And you know who she is. She's none other than one of our very celebrated and exciting personalities from outside of Jamaica. My very good longtime friend, someone that we draw a long bench with, right? And laugh and chat and take ourselves to all the exciting experiences that we want to do so. My name is Tatlin Oliver. This space is to celebrate our writers and our authors. Like tonight, we have Joan Andrea Hutchinson. Welcome, Joan. So great to see you. How you do?
Good, my heart and my wonderful life is beautiful. And look at you, you're so gorgeous. Look at you.
Thank you so much, my friend. I could easily say the same thing to you. You know what? This long time, me never see you. This long time, yeah, me never see you. Come let me hold your hand.
Indeed. Wow.
So you know what? One of the first things I have to say is congratulations on being awarded the Order of Distinction. And this was back in 2018, one of the greatest national honors that Jamaica can confer on one of its own. And you know what? I just want to say heartiest congratulations to you for winning such an award. I know when you received it, you had no clue that this was the what did you feel when you heard about that?
Had no clue is one thing, but it was when somebody saw it in the newspaper, and no, it's in a WhatsApp group. Somebody said, "Oh, congratulations, Joan!" Congratulations for what? For being awarded an OD. What? That's when I knew. Somebody in a WhatsApp group told me.
Wow, that is amazing. How many years have you been at this thing of arts and culture, Joan?
Oh my goodness. You know, I wrote my first piece when I was actually in primary school. And the first piece I wrote was not in Jamaican language. And people associate me a lot with the, writing everything in Jamaican language. But that's not true at all. My first piece was actually a piece about Sir Alexander Bustamante. I think I must have been about, I don't know, 8 or 9. And I saw this man and he was so tall. He was like a giant. And I remember writing a poem about him. That was the first poem I wrote. And I had a mother, God bless her soul, who just encouraged the writing, encouraged the creative arts. She would take us to watch plays and stuff like that. She herself was a writer, an uncelebrated writer. And so she encouraged our writing. But I tell you when it happened for me, when I went to St. Andrew High School, I had a teacher named Paulette Seaton. I think she has passed, and I always wanted to meet her once again. And she encouraged our writing as a second form, third formers at St. Andrew High School. She encouraged us to write. And that's when I think it really, really started happening for me.
Now, let us trace all the way back. Your mother was a nurse and your dad a policeman, right?
Right. Typical Jamaica.
So the nurse and the policeman got together. I know that you owe and you credit a lot of your success today as a performer, writer, businesswoman, entrepreneur, cultural exponent, teacher, educator, mother, dear friend to your parents.
Absolutely.
What was it like growing up with your specific parents? Who were these people who helped to hone and shape Joan Andrea Hutchinson?
They were amazing, and it was years later, I think in my 30s, I said to my mother, how come I've never heard you and Daddy quarrel? I mean, teeth and tongue must meet at some point, must quarrel. How come as children we never ever heard you quarrel? And my mother said to me, because if we had a disagreement, it was not your business as children. She said, anytime you see we disappear up underneath the mango tree at the top of the lawn, we're going to go argue with something, and we smile, and we make up, and we come back in the house. But I never ever saw my parents quarrel. And just I think yesterday I said to somebody, I feel like a perfect balance between my mother and my father. My father was the balanced peacemaker, don't war for nothing, just very patient. My mother now was the go-getter, aggressive. When I say aggressive, not kick down, but trust me, if you interfere with her, pity them, she will come to you and say, Talking, what you want with my daughter? What you want with my daughter? That was my mother. My father now, he'd be very busy. He was a total pacifist. And so I have the kind of, aggressive go-getting spirit from my mother, and I have the balance and the pacifist sort of behavior from my father. I really think I'm a perfect mix of both parents.
Did you grow up as an only child, Joan Andrea?
Not at all, I actually have, well, I had three siblings, two older brothers, and a younger sister who was actually born on my birthday. They call it Scotch twins when you have a sibling born on the same birthday. So the 8th of June, my sister was born. Unfortunately, she passed about 4 years ago. So now I'm an only girl. I still have two older brothers, but I'm an only girl now.
That must have I know that in the final years that your parents were alive, you were the primary caregiver. How did that experience shape your view on life in total, Joan?
It makes you realize, when them say once a man, twice a child, is a true something. Is a true something. I mean, my father, for example, he liked ice cream and he liked little treats. And so each evening you came home, he'd be looking to see, what you bring for him. A little pack of biscuit, a little ice cream, a little, those are his little treats, But my parents, for example, they celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary in hospital. Whenever there was a time when both used to be in the hospital, one go in, one come out, one go in, but they right down to the wire. My father, when he lost his sight, it was devastating for him because he felt he could no longer protect my mother because, they dated for years before and they were married for 60 years. I mean, I sometimes believe, Kathleen, that I am idealistic about relationships. And I'm idealistic because of what I was exposed to in terms of my mother and my father. It's not that you expect the man to be knight in shining armor, but the sort of, protector and provider that my father was, and trust me, my parents, trust me, man, they're fantastic. And I'm very, very happy that my son got a chance to spend so much time with his grandparents. And so, I remember leaving him up with his grandparents because I had to go somewhere. Boy, it's about 3 or so. When I pick him up and I comb him here, him tell me, you don't comb my hair good because you don't put in a part like how grandpa do it. No, you don't put in a part like how grandpa do it, okay? But he loved his grandparents down to the end.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
I think
I'm
family.
blessed and privileged.
Yes, yeah. I think family is so important to us as creators because we draw so much material from how we relate in our family. And, that's our first school, our first university, our first set of teachers, our first set of caregivers, our first set of first responders, anything that is right, they are the ones that we lean to so that we can grow from there. So let me take your hand and let us walk all the way through from the time you were in primary prep school, coming through to high school and so on, especially for those who may not know how you came to be this multifaceted woman. So let's start about, when you remember yourself. You mentioned that you started to write from as way back as primary school when you did that story, that poem about Bustamante, and nobody don't remember that, but you certainly did. And it makes you so language dexterous, so to speak, because you do speak what, 3 languages, 4 languages?
Yeah. And the things, I've lived in a number of different environments. And even before I started living abroad, I remember, when we used to have a thing called pen pal. I had a Cuban pen pal. And so I would write to her in Spanish and she would write to me in English. But of course, her English was not that good. And I remember with my friends laughing and saying, kiki, kiki, laughing at her grammar. And my mother just said to me, can you imagine how she sit down there with PR peers in my laugh after your Spanish? It just leveled me. It just leveled me completely, and I stopped laughing immediately. But yeah. So I mean, I've lived in a number of different places. Again, this was the adventurous person in me because of my mother. I picked up, sold my car, moved to Holland. Went to broadcasting school in Holland. Decided to live there for a while. Moved from Holland to Spain. Lived in Spain for a while. Moved from Spain to Tunisia, North Africa for a while. And these experiences, they shape you because you're very insular when you're in Jamaica and you have not gone outside of Jamaica. Your thinking is very insular. When you live, I don't mean just go visit like a tourist, but when you live among other people. When I lived in Spain, I worked with an international network of NGOs. And at any given time, we had 13 nationalities, 13 languages going at the same time in the office. But we're all human beings. And so, this thing, I remember, listen, Ziggy Marley and the Melody Makers came to perform in Spain when I was living there. And it was a big thing for me. Oh my God, what am I going to wear? I have to find something to wear. And I'm making a big production. And the guy from the Philippines, Noel, said to me, what's the big deal? You're not the performer. Why does it matter what you wear? And then you realize that's the Jamaican in you, because you know how we love to dress up and we love to bossy. I worked in an organization where, people wore the same jeans, maybe, they should change it once during the week. So you have two different. No, me, you never. I remember my boss introducing me once to someone and said, oh, this is my communications director who never wears the same clothing twice in the same month. I thought, oh, because that's how we are in Jamaica. With very of clothes and very stocious, those things matter. But the older you get, the more you realize, I don't judge people based on things like that. I am more concerned with form, with substance rather than form. So I don't pay too much attention to the form anymore.
I understand. I understand definitely how those experiences can shape you differently, and tap into the soul of your heart as to who you are. And I know I asked 100 questions in different ways. It's like I'm going to get everything out of you as quickly as I can before the time runs off and leaves us alone. So what primary school, prep school did you attend in Jamaica? And what was the experience like?
You have to hear this. I went to Providence Primary School, not New Providence, Providence Primary School, which is actually beside, it's at the back of Providence Methodist Church, which is on Old Hope Road, right in Ligoni there. It started as a small church school with like maybe 10, 15, 20 students. And the principal at the time was really very good. And so everybody wanted to come to his school. All of a sudden, the school had a population of 100. There was no place to put them. So round the back in the cemetery, we sat on the tombstones and we did. A teacher is there in class, and you're sitting on the tombstones with your book in your hand and in your lap. And this is how you did your classes. You played on the tombs. We didn't know the word desecrate at the time. We jump up and down on people's tomb. We kin popalik. We climb the guinea tree, drop out of the tree, drop on people's tomb, things like that. So this is me tell people that's why I'm not afraid of Nuppy, because this was part of my primary school experience, And I was telling a friend, I guess my creative thing has been there for a long time. When we were in grade 6, right? This girl came, I know her name was Libya, but Libya came from a different country. She was the daughter of a diplomat, I think. No, we look at Jamaican people with the hair twist up and 40 bubbles and ting. Libya was tall. She had beautiful olive skin. She wore stockings. No, can you imagine like a primary school picnic? We are in the early 70s. She wore stockings with her uniform. She was like a goddess as far as we were concerned. So Libya don't use the word sweetie. She says candy. So all of us now, it was candy. Then we little Jamaican girls, so we got upset because all the boys were like cottoning on to Libya and not paying us any attention. But everything Libya did, they said, if you stay in the sun too much, you're gonna get sunburned. All of a sudden, we stopped playing out the door. We had to stay inside because foreign girls say that we can get sunburned. But I mean, trust me, I had really, really wonderful times at primary school, and now I'm in touch with some of the people with whom I went to primary school. People like Rosamond Brown went to school with me. Marcia Brownie went to school with me, Wayne White, and I'm in touch with them now and absolutely loving it. But I love my life, man. Every stage of it is different, and I love every stage of my life.
Did you think that at any time during those times, jumping up and down on a grave, that you would have been such a forerunner in the business of cultural arts as you've been?
Absolutely no. I had no idea. I was just doing my thing. I was just doing my thing and having fun. I had no idea, I want to talk a little bit about how it exploded. There are two things that happened which caused the explosion. I've been living overseas, right? In Spain and Holland, Tunisia. And Jamaicans, when you're in Jamaica, right, you don't have no Jamaican flag in your house and things like that. But you see, once you live overseas, you have to have those trappings of Jamaica that you hold on to. So my trapping of Jamaica that I held on to when I lived overseas was my writing. I started writing. So I was writing before, but that's when I started writing in the Jamaican language all the time. On the bus, on the train, I was writing. That's what kept me connected. I came home to Jamaica, and this lady, Karen Gentles, was doing a show out by the old jail in Port Royal. And I remember Carolyn Cooper asked her, oh, this Jamaican girl, she has just come back from Spain. Put her on the program, just give her a few minutes. She put me on the program, and let me tell you, I turned the place upside down. When I look at the review, how the barman stopped serving and everybody, it was like I think Miss Lou had been absent from the space for so long that when I came with this style, this brand of poetry, people were just like blown away. And they were so impressed that they did a second show like about 2 months later. And now I was the lead on the show. I was now the main star on the show.
And where did this show happen?
Out at the old jail out by Port Royal.
I remember the place. I know the place. I very much know the place. What year was this, Joan?
This would have been 1993, 3 or 4.
Okay. And that would be after all the time when you became one of the youngest broadcasters on the national television station, JVC.
Yeah.
Because I remember meeting you when I was about 17, 18. And then we started to like swap gigs and do gigs together and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
what happened with me with the broadcasting, actually, our good friend, Aston Cook, blessed memory. Aston Cook and myself went to Clarendon to do a show one day with Oliver Samuels. I was working at JVC, just started working at JVC as a production assistant. And I turned up at the station on one Saturday night, and it was 7:30, no, 8 o'clock. They used to have 7:30 news. That's the only newscast. It was one station at the time. And I turned up at the station at like 7:45 just to pick up a book. And nobody had read the 7:30 news because the news reader hadn't turned up. I think it was Diana Wright. And for whatever reason, she hadn't turned up. And they said, but you have to read the news. Of course, I'm in t-shirt and jeans. And Tothlin, I took all Aston's green shirt, turned it back way so it had a nice little stand-up collar. I borrowed the security guard's lipstick. I borrowed the security guard's lotion. Them days, I think gel did invent it. So I borrowed the security guard lotion and slick back my hair like gel. Borrowed the security guard earrings, lipstick, put on all rouge with the lipstick. And in a few minutes, I was on TV. Good evening, I'm Joan Andrea Hutchinson, and this is news. Apparently it went so well because Monday morning I got flowers from Gloria Lanneman, who was the general manager at the time, Bobby Gisses, who was director of television, Concy Walters. You might know him, the Concy Walters Cancer Center is named after him down by St. Joseph's. He was the director of news. So apparently I did well. They were happy. And then I went into regular rotation immediately. I was 18.
That is a very big apparent, Joan. A very big apparent.
Yep.
Right then and there, what I like about the story you just shared is the fact that you seized the opportunity. You didn't say, oh, but me not ready, or I'm not ready. You didn't say, I don't have the right clothes on. You didn't say any of these things. You jumped right in and used what you had at your fingertips, thereby exemplifying one of our favorite sayings in Jamaica. You have to take your hand on fashion.
Hand on fashion. Gel never invented, so it's lotion I use and slick back the hair. Oh yeah.
And you look so good that you won yourself some bouquet of flowers and a heavy rotation.
Yeah.
I want to just tell me a little bit about your experience as a St. Andrew High School girl, and how did your craft and culture take place then, before you even went away to Spain and you went Europe hopping?
Well, the first thing is it's not St. Andrew. If you're an Andrews girl, it's Snandrew, right? We're Snandrew High School girls. We're Snandrew. Shout out to all the Snandrew girls who are listening, right? Now, one of the things that St. Andrew does for you, it makes you very enough. They validate you. They make you confident. It makes you very enough. And so you sort of, people say, you're nothing, or you think you're nice. And I would say things like, think, because St. Andrew made you feel like you could do anything and everything. I did my first pantomime Tottlin at age 17, playing alongside Mas Ran. That was his last pantomime. That was my first, because Bobby Gisses was our drama teacher. And so he encouraged me to audition, So I was, and I think, honestly, when I look back now, I think it made me a little arrogant because I was perhaps earning more than my teachers at that time. Yeah. So I believe, in all honesty, it made me a little bit arrogant. you know. And in fact, I love to tell people, I love to tell people, St. Andrew High School expel me. What did I say? They put me out. Yes, at the end of lower six.
Didn't know that.
Oh yeah, but here's the other part of the story that I love to tell. Few years after that, I was back as their graduation speaker. I've been back as graduation speaker. I've been back as motivational speaker, distinguished old girl, all kind of awards. So the stone that the builder refused, they put me out. And little after that, I am this celebrated old girl. Yeah.
Are you serious today?
It's serious.
Ah,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
wow, look at that. So you're trying to tell me you didn't graduate from St.
No,
Andrew?
I did fifth form. I graduated in fifth form, but I went to lower six. So I was supposed to be doing my A levels, which is 2 years. So at the end of year one, they put me out because they said I was not focusing and I was distracting other people, you know. And so they put me out. I went to Exceed Community College. That's when I did school with people like Cliff Hughes and Philip Paulwell, and it was absolutely wonderful. Dade Hill.
That was a blessing. That was
Absolutely.
a blessing. That was
Absolutely.
a blessing.
Pete Noel was our teacher. That's when I met Bello and Blacker. They came as like interns from School of Drama to teach drama. And so I met all these wonderful people. Thought there are no chances in life. There are no chance meetings.
No,
Everything is
no.
ordered. One of my favorite songs is Fred Hammond. Order my steps, Lord. Order my steps. And sometimes you have to submit and allow your steps to be ordered.
Listen.
We don't fight things again. We just go with it.
Yes, just go with the flow. Just tonight, one of my very good friends said to me, she was watching something, and the message from that, which she was watching, said, things that are happening to you are happening for you.
For you. Yep.
I'm like, wow, look at that. So here you are mentioning some rich names like Aston Cook, another very, very good friend, of course, who played a very powerful, strong role in my personal and my theatrical life, did yours. And as he did in yours, as well as Blacka and Bobby Gissays, of course, from JBC. And then you have your Keith Noel, who, yes, I've had the pleasure of working with as well. I too was in sixth form doing pantomime. And the teacher swore that you come to class every day sleeping because you're out on stage acting at night. Mervyn Morris would say the same thing of me. He says, you are a brilliant actress, but boy, as a student, I would sleep all because I'm busy acting at night. But that's, you know what? That is what we do. So when you did that performance over at Port Royal, another historic place in Jamaica, and you brought the exciting culture alive, how did that make you feel going forward? How did it propel you? How did it encourage you to continue on in this way?
When I saw how people reacted, I myself was blown away. It's like people were hungry. As I said, Miss Lou was missing from the space. And so people were hungry for it. And so they just welcomed me, they pushed me, they encouraged me, and then the whole bumpy head gal thing happened. And that wow.
You know what? I want us to really spend some time and talking about the business of cultural identity. Us as Afrocentric people of African descent, and what it means to wear our hair as we choose. What made you that day on that particular broadcast, because you're a regular broadcaster now at JBC, and you go on stage being natural and normal. I don't think to my mind that you went there to make a statement. No. You were being you. So tell me about that night, that story, and what happened.
Well, I tell you, I had just come back from living overseas. And, I left Jamaica with a Jerry curl in my hair. Remember Jerry curl?
Oh, gosh.
Curl? Oh, yeah. So I left here with a Jerry curl. And when I moved to Holland, I couldn't find a black hairdresser to do my hair. They didn't understand my hair. So I cut it all off, as in low, like a boy's hairstyle. Cut it right off and then started growing it back and then twisting it. And I remember twists are just coming in. Twist wasn't in style then, Kathleen. You couldn't wear your hair and twist. You had to be creaming your hair as a black woman. And I remember coming to the airport, some people are like, oh, Tracy Chapman. I said, boy, I don't know why I'm never maximize and make some money off that, right? So I come back to Jamaica and I'm asked to host I'm hosting a program on Power 106 with Leah Kim Samaj. She was a producer called CXC Power, where we were like, working with teachers and helping students. And then they asked me to host Tuesday Forum. I think the regular host, I think it was Elaine Wint, was unavailable, and they asked me to host the program. So, I had my hair, in the Nubian knots. And just for those who don't know the difference, Nubian knots are smaller than Bantu knots. The Bantu knots are the bigger ones. The Nubians, Nubian people are slim and slender, right? Anyway, so I had me here in the little Nubian knots, China bump. And before the program started, I was joking around with my panel. I was hosting the program. We had educators and psychologists and principals and things. The program was about study skills for young people, teaching young people how to take charge of their academic lives, etc. So we were joking. I was joking around saying, I wonder if anybody going to call and have a problem with my hairstyle. But for me, it was a joke because it had to be a joke. It had to be a joke. Well, by the end of the station, by the end of the program, the station received over 36 phone calls from people who were really angry. And until they talked in the level of vitriol, they called and they said things like, take that dirty bumpy head gal off the TV. Take that dirty rasta gal off the TV. That's a level of vitriol, Take that gal off the TV. Yeah. And I remember being at my other job, at KLS, I was an editor. The next day, and a woman rang and she said, I used to hear you reading news on radio and I was very impressed. But now that I see you, you're like a disgrace to women. She said, if my maid came to work looking like you, I'd have to send her back home. You are like dirt. And the last thing she says, don't ever come back on my TV like that again. But you see, you talked earlier about how I always talk about my parents. I grew up with parents who validated me. Me don't need nobody to tell me it's nice, Kathleen, call me nice. We don't need anybody to tell me nice, me nice. There are areas that I need to work on, and I know I'm very aware of the areas that I need to lose a little weight, and I need to do this, and the things I need to work on. But me don't need nobody to tell me me nice, because I work at it, And so because I felt good in my own skin, I didn't cave. Some people would have caved because people were calling and cussing and saying, this girl on TV, this Rasta looking at. Because remember, at that time, everybody had straightened hair. The only two persons before me wore natural hair on television. Alison Onis wore a nice big afro, and there was a lady called Hope Thelwell. But even Faye Ellington, shortly after my thing, Faye Ellington had her hair twisted. And people would tell her, woman of her color and things should know better than that. So there's some deep-seated issues, and if we keep on, we need to change the narrative that we tell our children, for example. You're too black, you're too ugly, you're too... No. My mother tell me every day, oh, I'm nice. Every day she tell me, oh, I'm nice.
That is right.
That's what we need to do with our children, and that's what we need to do with ourselves as well,
Same thing we need to do.
Somebody forward me say, somebody was telling me the other day how she vexed somebody called a person that I say her belly big. I said, but your belly big. It's big. So what you vex for, the person, your belly big. So, but once you accept your foot big, it big, your forehead big, it big, your knee knock, it knock. As long as you accept these things about yourself, then nobody can take it, as Jamaica said, take it, tell you. Nobody can take it, tell you.
I quite agree with that. I mean, I, again, grew up with my mother in particular, who I just thought she was a fashion model because she wore her hair any which way. Whether it is very low, whether it is a nice Gatsby wig, or she had her hair processed or whatnot, whatever it was. And she was always, as you mentioned the fashion thing earlier, she was always, at the height of fashion. And that's a standard she literally set for me as a young woman. She never said to me, well, as a young Black woman, you need to do so. It's about being whole. It's about being human. It's about being self-respecting. It's about being self-aware. It's about owning your own cultural identity. You went on, Joan, to write a poem about that. Give us a taste of that poem for those who may never heard that.
Yeah. Right after that thing happened, Farrakhan came to Jamaica, and so everybody was up in the Black issues and feeling strong about, and so I am not gonna cuss off anybody who doesn't like my hairstyle. It's okay. It's your constitutional right. It's okay. You don't have to like it. So just a little part of the poem, it basically says, tell me something not good enough for your TV screen, or me offend your eyesight. Tell me something's a black, ugly, bumpy girl, and me tell you something feeling right. Cause me something's a butu, I mean, I have no class. Trace me and and rude. Tell me say educated woman should have known little better, and me tell you me feeling good. So I'm gonna jump to the end of the poem now. It says, but serious. When you go fall in love with you and let go of all of your fear, when you go take the time, tell God thanks for your life instead of fretting out here. Because if it kinky or straight, if we're black or white, transparent or opaque, God make all of it for a special reason, and God don't make mistake. So Galam, call me black and bumpy head if you want, but make sure you say it loud, because the Creator love me and me feel good to be bumpy head, black and round.
Ay, ay, ay.
Indeed. And that's how I feel. It's not an act, that's how I feel. I genuinely like this person.
What would your comments be for institutions right now in Jamaica wanting to put children out or discipline children because they say, well, you're wearing a black hairstyle, whatever black hairstyle that they want to call it black. How do we move ahead in 2023, 24, when that still seems to be an issue?
It still seems to be an issue. You see, I think very often we are too caught up with form and not with substance. We're caught up with form and not with substance. And so if, for example, Kathleen, you have a daughter, and your daughter come to you and say, Mommy, my boyfriend is an actor, and him come and him here, twist up, and him wear some slippers and thing. Boyfriend is an actor, or him is an entrepreneur. You raise up your eyebrow and think you want her to go there with this nice like a doctor or whatever, But when you think of what theater practitioners have to do in terms of the discipline, they don't understand just product, they understand process. You rehearse for 6 months to get a 2-hour play right. And a lot of people understand that. So people are caught up with you must be lawyer, doctor, Indian chief. A lot of people I know who are living far more successful lives, and they're just, doing things off the grid.
And being who they are.
Being who they are, their authentic
self. Who they are. I think that today, and especially on the heels of COVID, now more than ever before, I think it behooves us to certainly seek that which resonates completely with us in our heart. We're not telling people to be reckless, no. But what we are asking for is tolerance and understanding as we go forward, which is why I enjoy speaking to my writers such as yourself, because you write things in a way that causes us to stop and consider the scenario, the entire picture, and how we view things. Like one I'll never forget is the one where you had that tour guide in Montego Bay at the Annie Palmer State House.
Henny, get it right. Henny Palmer.
Annie Palmer. Any part of that you can share with us right now that you can remember? Because you've written like about how many pieces of poetry, Joan? About 1,000.
I don't even know. I have no idea. I've never counted. I haven't counted, But it's, again, people not feeling good about themselves. So you have to change your hair, you have to change your skin color, you have to change your language because you're not comfortable. So immediately she sees tourists, she sees guests, and this is Henny Grave. Over Yasso is Uchpot, they were buried Henny Palmer. And the minute they step aside, she's talking to her Jamaicans and she goes straight into the patois. And as soon as the foreigners come back, and Henny Palmer were died, and because you're not comfortable, let me get this, let me make sure everybody understands. I'm not saying that we shouldn't learn English. I'm just saying that English is just another way of communicating. If somebody is a speaker of Spanish and they mess up the English when they're speaking, are you going to call them dunce? You don't. But if somebody is a speaker of Jamaican Creole and they're not so good at English, suddenly them dunce, them down, or sense, them get stupid. I have a serious problem with that.
Right. Tell us now, Joan, a little bit about how you went through the process of producing your very first book. How was that for you? When did it occur to you to say, you know what, let me put all my writings together in this one first book? How was the process for you? How did your heart work and your head work in
Mm.
that experience?
Well, I'm going to give Carolyn Cooper some credit here, and I'll tell you why. Because I had been writing myrtly. I was living overseas, and writing was my way of connecting. So I'd been writing some of the pieces already. And then I came home and I started doing my cassettes. You remember cassette, Tatlin? Cassette? Uh-huh. So when the whole bumpy head gal thing exploded, what I did was I simply derailed the concept of the book and produced my first cassette, which was called That Bumpy Head Gal. And then I had the cassettes and thing. And I remember I was asked to perform. Everywhere I went to perform, I said, oh, this is from my upcoming book, because it is from my upcoming book. And Calabash had a launch at Red Bones, and I was asked to read some pieces because I was going to read at Calabash that year. And I remember saying to Carolyn Cooper, boy, I don't even feel like an author because everybody have book and me not have none. And talking, I think this would have been like the 3rd of November. And that book was launched, the first book was launched on the 12th of December at Devon House, because I already had the material. So it was just because Carolyn said, Joan, just do it. Just do it. You already have the material. And so I did it. And I launched the first book on the 12th of December at Devon House. And, it's like people were just waiting for it. They were absolutely waiting for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Who would you say in the artistic arena of influences your writing, your work, your heart, your way of being?
Miss Miss Lou is a documenter, a chronicler of Jamaica. And I like to think of myself, of my work, as chronicling Jamaica. And so when you take up Miss Lou's work, I love her set of wartime poems. I keep saying I'm going to do some serious research and do a presentation on Miss Lou's wartime poems. When the woman tell the man, say, she's trying to tell the man, say, him go take your hand out of my box. This is the lady selling. You look like it. Basically, the man don't have no hair on his head. And she tells him look like he must suffer from hair raid. Because at that time, air raid, meaning in the war, air raid, that is what. But I mean, her use of language, I am just so impressed with Miss Lou. I am so impressed with Miss Lou, But just in terms of my mother, I talk about my mother a lot, and I keep saying, I'm going to publish some of the things that she has written. She's an unpublished writer, but my mother has written some amazing stuff. There's a book that she has written, which I'm going to publish. And when I look at her use of language, the color, I'm like, wow, I'm totally blown away. Totally blown away, Yeah.
Yeah. I like how you already had your work coming together on its own for performance, because this is the interesting thing about you as a total artist. You're like similar to Blacka, who was here with us the other evening. You not only perform your work, you also acting plays, you also write and produce theater pieces. And one very special performance I saw you do was with the Carry Folk Singers, where you were like the soothsayer slash griot slash storyteller slash MC for that event. And you brought to the fore so many different characters. It was like a one-woman show in the midst of the Carry Folk concert.
Yeah,
so
I loved it. I love that. I love that. And for years I wanted to do a one-woman show, just playing all those characters. And there's a group in Canada called Heritage Singers, which is a group of, it's a folk group run by my friend Grace Carter Henry Lyons, who used to be with folk singers. And I also did the same thing with their show. I went up and it was the same, running all the characters. So they're singing some songs about, market. And so I'm a little girl in the market selling some things, and I sing some songs about death and dead yards, and I'm a grieving widow. And, and I love playing all those different characters.
Would you produce a one-woman show for us, like in another year or two? Would you dedicate yourself to that? Because you've not been very prolific and seen in the marketplace as often as people would demand of you.
I know. I deliberately wanted to reduce my footprint, so to speak. And especially after, well, and some people know, in 2018, I buried my mother, my father, and my sister in 10 weeks. 10 weeks, buried mother, father, and sister. In fact, when I buried my father the Friday, the next day I buried my sister. And then my mother passed a few weeks after. And so I sort of came off the grid. So I've been doing a lot of things behind the scenes, but not necessarily out front, you know. And I don't know if I necessarily want a public lifestyle anymore, but I want to use my creative energies. So I do use it when I teach. I mean, I teach developmental English. I do use it when I teach. I use it when I coach public speaking. I use it when I use it in so many different ways, you know. But I don't know if I want to full scale go back to performing. I probably will do a little, you know, a one show or a two show, but I don't know if I want to do it full time anymore.
Somebody else would ask you, then Joan, if you had such a great talent, you would be a perfect example to show people how things can be done. Now, we have watched you on television in the different series you have done. In fact, there's a video I posted to my page with you as the bus conductor stroke, again, another tour guide looking person. And that racked up so many views because that makes us feel good when we see that.
Yeah.
You know, wouldn't you be robbing us and our future thespians, actors, performers of you showing an example as to how it's done?
Well, I think I want to record more stuff and put more stuff out. That piece, for example, is a typical example of the using the creativity to chronicle what's happening in Jamaica. That was a time when they introduced what they call the executive bus service to Jamaica. And it was Tony Hendricks who wrote that piece with this I'm the executive bus conductor, you know, it's a sort of parody on the flight attendant, but really she's the bus conductor, you know. But that was the time when they introduced the executive bus. So, you know, you have seat belt and you get bottle of water and so it's like a piece of Jamaica frozen in time. But if you are not around, you don't understand the nuances of why that was
there. That is the upscale doctor.
Yeah, indeed.
That was an upscale doctor. What I like how you describe, Joan, how you prefer to start recording things now and performing in that context. So, which brings me to the next question, you may have already answered it, is what do you prefer? Do you prefer being live on stage where you get the immediate response? Or do you prefer doing film or radio and so on? Yes, I hear you. You work behind the scenes as a public relations professional, very, very top tier professional, working with some of the, you know, great corporate entities and government entities in Jamaica. In your professional background, we do know that you are currently working with the oldest college in the Western Hemisphere, that is the Michael University College.
Big up to the Michael, yeah.
Right, as their front runner in public relations and marketing. Beautiful institution, wonderful institution, of course. And thank you for carrying on since I'm not there to do that.
Exactly, you know, I'm sitting in Toplin's chair where she used to sit, yeah. Isn't life just amazing?
Listen, isn't it though? Isn't it though? You know, but
amazing?
our exciting place. So we do know, and this is why I say you are so multifaceted. And of course, on top of being a mother of a brilliant young man, you know, because it's no easy feat being a mother at any stage and so on. So here you are balancing all these roles. So again, my question is, which do you prefer? You know, behind the scenes recording, get it done, get it move on, or the live interaction with your audience?
You know, I used to love the live interaction. The thing is, I haven't done it for a while, so I don't know what it feels like anymore, honestly. But I loved the live interaction. It gives you such a buzz. It gives you such a buzz. You know, I haven't done it for a long time, but you know, the thing too is that audiences change. And so I find people under 30, people under 40, they're not interested in my kind of work. So I don't want to get up live on stage to an audience of people under 40 because they will probably boo me off because they don't resonate. Nothing that I'm going to say is going to resonate with them. So if you give me the old people, give me the people I'm over 50, I will perform live for them because there's a connection. They will connect. When I talk about things in old time Jamaica, the young people are not going to understand.
Right, right. Because you have performed even at the Apollo Theater, you have performed in the United Kingdom, you have performed in several different places of the United States of America, as well as Canada and the Caribbean.
Right.
So, for us to highlight that, you have done a great body of work to date. And definitely I can understand you understanding your environment, wherein you don't wish to use your talents in that way, but instead you can still go ahead and capture the essence of who we are perfectly. And that's why I love your work. I love your work, and not because you're sitting in front of me. It's amazing because it's, yes, of the caliber of a Miss Louise Bennett. It has a color, it has a life, it has the truth, and especially the humor as to how we are as Jamaicans. So I just,
I describe my work. I always say it's that proverbial spoonful of sugar which makes the medicine go down. And so you're telling people things about themselves, but you're using the vehicles of wit and humor. And so people are laughing, they're kicking, but at the same time, you're telling them things about themselves. And maybe if you told them straight, they would have put them back up and vex. But when you use humor as a vehicle, then they laugh, but then they sometimes think about it a bit, and that's something that I really, really enjoy. Really
let me
enjoy.
ask you this question. As a humorist, is this something you can teach someone to do? Can you teach someone how to write as you do?
Yes, everybody can be taught. Some people have it naturally. They don't have to teach them nothing, And I have declared, and I will declare, my favorite Jamaican actor, hands down, is Winston Bell. Winston Bell is just his timing, I can't even start. Bello, if you're not listening, hope somebody tell you. But honestly, Winston Bell is my favorite actor. But I think you can be taught. You may not be as natural about it as somebody who has it naturally, but you can be taught. Yeah, some people can dance naturally, and some people have to be taught. They don't necessarily have the same soul with it when they dance, but they can be taught.
Now, you have a very special poem. I saw you, or series of poems from your audiobook. So you were doing audiobook long before they were in fashion, right?
Right, but when they were called cassette. When they were called cassette.
And then you went on to CDs and so on. So this is Inna Me Heart, that talk about Jamaican love, romantic romance. What is your take? What is your overview as to how Jamaicans deal with this whole business of love and romance? How is it?
I think Jamaicans are absolutely wonderful in so many different ways. We're good at, for example, the backhand compliment. So a man will say, "Hey, may jump through Macabush for you, he's telling you that he loves you so much. May run through Macabush naked for you, my girl." The way we use language is just amazing, But I think what is important is for us to understand each other's love language, and not everybody's love language is the same. One of the best relationships I've ever had in my life, this man would, pack my suitcases and clean my shoes for me and cook my food. And yeah, that was his love language. He's not going to bring you the flowers and say, "Oh, it's Valentine's Day, I love you." But he would do things for you. And I saw my mother and father were married for 60 years. And my father, his love language was to do things for my mother, not necessarily to buy, because when he bought, he wasn't very creative with the buying. So every year she get perfume. And she would say to me, "La, la, perfume." So he wasn't very creative with the gift buying, but he was very good as a provider. And he did. And, so everybody's love language is different. And, sometimes we get caught up with, "Oh, the man needs to make more money than we do. The man needs to do." Everybody's thing is different. The first time I met a man who was a stay-at-home dad, I was like, wow, his wife went out to work and he stayed home, but guess what? It worked for them. And listen, the relationship is between two people. So if that dynamic works for the two of you, then where John Public go, what them doing in your relationship? If it works for you, it works for you, right? But the reason I wrote this book, right, and there's a CD version of it as well, is because a lot of people seem to feel that the Jamaican language can only be used for rough, coarse, and crude concepts. And I say no. The Jamaican language is beautiful. It can be used for love as well. Now, because also we're not very good at saying things, when I wrote the book, what I did was, and this one doesn't have a bookmarker, no, the bookmarker is gone. But when I did the book, I put a bookmarker in the book, in every single book. And the thing was, if you need to say something to someone and you don't have the words, purchase the book, drop the bookmarker in at the particular poem, and you can drop it at them office, you can send it in the mail, you can whatever. You know, I remember a gentleman calling me and saying, boy, he and his wife were having problems, and he found a poem in here that said, "Me glad I you may choose." And he put the bookmarker in and put it on the bed, and he just called me to them and said, "We're nice." I remember a woman called me, she said she see a guy, she always like him, but him now look far away. And she find a poem, I can't remember, it's one of the early poems. One of the poems, "Make we give this thing a try." Yes, "Make we give this thing a try." And she put the book, and she called me to tell me that them there. She just called me to tell me that we there.
So your book out there matching people up, right?
Absolutely,
So we
absolutely.
need to get a copy of that book. That book is on Amazon.
It's on Amazon. Yeah.
So so the book is a marriage counselor. The book is a dating service.
Everything in one, everything in one. And what it does, it goes through all the different stages of love. Like the first poem is called "What You Saw Frida." What you saw Frida. I can put on my glasses because I cannot read without the glasses, and me I go on like me cute. Okay. What you so afraid of? You're afraid to fall in love? Then baby, if it no walk, we not going ways if push come to shove. Love have teeth and teeth can bite. So even while love flowing, we take the bad, use it, balance out the good. That better than not knowing. Because if you're afraid of love, you will never live. You just have to exist from year to year. We could plunge into this thing headlong and just forget the fear. So it goes from what you're so afraid of to we're in a relationship and things going well to boy, it now goes so well, maybe we need to done this thing. So it runs through the whole gamut of the relationship cycle. You know, you have poems like "You Really Turn Me On." Ignore the facts and may I ignore you. Pay no mind to how me I go on. What you really, really need to know is how you really turn me on. You know, so sometimes you don't have the language, but hey, there's this one that I love. Love you inside my head. Kataki, you know how it is. All the way at some point. I mean, my love inside my head is and was Denzel Washington, right? I had a full relationship with Denzel Washington in my head. And we all have relationships with people right up here. So it's a relationship of relationships, a fantasy well fed, the most complete, what a something sweet, perfect inside my head. Long time with there and I share this love, a love well born and bred. You fulfill me dream, every dream. Your love take over my head. You love me and kiss me like nobody can with a passion fire fed. But you never experienced the fire with me yet because it's only inside my head. But just afraid for no say you love me. Rejection is something me dread. So me may not there with you outright for John public see, but guess what? Me there inside my head. You know. So as I said, every stage, my favorite poem in the book. And I preface it by saying, you know, sometimes you put on a little weight and you think your partner don't like you. Or a man, you lose a little, you hear, you think your partner don't like you. Or you lose your... We are the ones with the issue. Your partner don't have no problem sometimes with the fact that you put on a little weight on your belly. Or we are the ones with the issue. This is called a human warfare to deal with. Even if you put on 50 pounds, even if you're sick and mager down, even if you bleach the black for fever brown, and you want to deal with. Even if your foot shaped like Afu Yam, and your hand look like Sanga the Banana Man, even if you claim Rasta but I quietly lick the ham, and you want to deal with. So even though you're behaving like a clown, and a few name them call all over town, and you want to be around, and just you want to deal with. No. What a sentiment. I just you want to do it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. What I know for sure is that our songwriters, our DJ artists are very, very good at expressing feelings. I know it tends to want to more center around sexual relations more than romantic relations, but that I think is a testament to the ambidextrousness of our language, our patois language. Oh,
Absolutely,
love
absolutely.
stories. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like back in the day when a guy would look at a girl and say, hey, check for you, you know.
yeah, I'm on check.
Nothing more than that. Me check for you, you know.
Yeah, and it's so loaded. It means so much, you know. And it's funny that you touch on the DJs and the songwriters, because it's the other career that I want. I feel myself a frustrated songwriter. I mean, I've written songs for like some plays, and I've written advertising jingles, and I wrote like a school song for the Caribbean Maritime University. And so I've written songs, and I usually have a melody in my head. So what is a song? A poem set to music. So I mean, there's some songs that I have written, meaning that I have the poetry and I have the melody, and I just trying to find the right artist. There's a song that hear me call it a song. There's a poem called Rasta Love, which is actually in this book, and I'm trying to find the right solid Rasta man. I just want to give you two verses
Just give
out.
me a touch.
Yeah, it says, tell your mother, said me are the right man for you. Will give you love sure and solid from a heart pure and true. Tell your family, say you're destined to be the queen. How when love is blessed by the creator, nobody can intervene. Girl, you'll never know love like when you love a Rasta man. To make and keep you happy and a Rasta man plan. Honor and respect you, take you to a higher heights. Totally committed, and for you the Rasta man will fight. For me, love is strong and deep. It has sitting you have to keep. Support you and comfort you when the hill is high and steep. The Rasta love is not a game, a lion you alone can tame, a prophecy for eternity, creator ordained. We need somebody to sing a song like that. We need
There you go.
somebody to sing the song. You
There
know,
you go.
the poetry is there. The poetry is there. You know,
I love it.
yeah.
I want to love you every day and every night. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, Jamaican man, full of lyrics, you know.
Oh God.
When you listen to
No
Dance
doubt.
Hall Queen, that song that Beanie Man sings, the first time I see you, would I walk in a fire. This what no, the first time I see you, would I jump in a maca. Second time I see you, would I burn up in a fire. I mean, talk about lyrics. Yeah,
No, they have them. Barris Hammond writings, Freddie McGregor, the whole of them. They are fantastic. Um,
absolutely.
we have a question, because if you have all of these going on, all of these things are going on, Faith Nelson wants to ask you, then what is your day like, Joe? What is your day like? Because, when do you write? How do you prioritize your writing, like your poetry or your plays or your stories? Because you not only have these poetry books available, but you write on culture, things that, herbal things in a book, on old time sin thing.
And I
And all
write
that sort of
speeches
stuff.
every day. I write speeches for my boss as well, you know. So I do a lot of
We're not
writing.
talking about that. So how do you find time to put down your creative work so
It
that
is
we can read
because
it, we can listen to it? Who is your muse? What is your muse?
life, life. You know, I like to think of myself as documenting life around me as I see it. That's what I do. I just document life. You know, somebody said to me once, boy, you don't need to go to entertainment. You can entertain yourself. Because I will see something happening and then I just embellish it in my head.
Mhm.
Embellish it, you know. But in terms of where do I find time to write, Faith? My day starts at 2 in the morning. Everybody who knows me knows it's a big joke. It's only Tatin can keep me out of my bed at this time, right? Tatin, me bonafide, she called me. I'm doing this. But normally I'm gone to bed at this time because I get up at 2 o'clock. So my creative juices are flowing at that time. When you're all sleeping in your bed and hug up your teddy bear and thing, lily water running and all those one things, I'm up working at 2 in the morning, but I go to bed really, really early, you know. But yeah, but I really believe in documenting. It's like when I think of the work of like a loving deer, where he documents things around him, you know. I like to think of my work as doing just that.
And does it ever stop? Is your mind always going? Does it ever stop?
You have to stop it. You know, sometimes I say, okay, I'm off the grid this weekend. I'm off the grid now. And I literally get off the grid. I'm doing nothing this weekend but puttering around in my garden and doing stuff. And yeah, you literally have to stop it. Sometimes you have to just say, you know, or
Yes.
sometimes I find like I'm doing 10 things at the same time. And sometimes you just have to stop and say, okay, reduce that to 5, cut it down to 5, because you have to preserve this as well.
How do you preserve the you that's there? literally burning on all cylinders, because in your position right now when you're writing speeches, and I know that as a PR writer, as a speech writer, you're not writing in the tongue of Joan Andrea. You have to write in the tongue of the person who is going to deliver the speech.
That's right.
And you have to use their terminology, their everything. So that takes another part of you, keeps you in the function of writing. I love that role.
Yeah, I love writing.
How do you preserve you? What do you do when you're not being performer, or when you're not being writer, when you're not being a professional at work, when you're not being mom to your wonderful, handsome son, Che?
You lock out the world. That's what you do. You lock out the world. You have to. My home is my castle. My home is my castle, psychologically, emotionally. What are you going home to do? Nothing. But home, it's my castle. I live in my garden. I don't have pretty fingernails like most of my friends because I live in my garden. I'm always digging up in the soil. When people ask me sometimes how I went through 2018 when I buried my mother, my father, and my sister in 10 weeks, it's the gardening. That's one. And also, it means locking out the world. So I have a circle, I have a small circle of friends, the Madge Foremans and the Donna Prestons and the Celia and my cousin Stephanie and Gussie and those people. And the Tatlins, of course. People, let me tell you something about Tatlin Oliver. Let me come off script here and tell you something about Tatlin Oliver. Anywhere in the US I'm performing, I will phone and say, Tatlin, I'm going to Cincinnati next week for a performance. What time you getting here? Tatlin jumps on a plane and gets there. I mean, almost everywhere I perform, Tatlin and that too is her getting off the grid. That's her getting off her grid and just coming to hang with me for a weekend. And it's always so much fun. It's just always so much fun. Tatlin, remember we did laugh after the man, where was it, New York?
It was in Atlanta.
Yeah,
that was in New York, but that was in Atlanta.
Yeah, man, there was a performing group and a little old man, me say, Daddy, suppose you say Daddy. Daddy can't catch one step, can't catch one note, but he was enjoying himself.
Yeah, it was a joy to watch. And yes, indeed, whenever we knock our heads together and we just live in the truth of who we are, it makes a lot of sense to us. It's a great sisterly support. It's family support. Absolutely. It's family support. It is just truth. It's just love. It's just support, and that's how life is. That's how we see things. And we have been doing this now, I know, for a good 40 plus years. So for that, I am so eternally grateful. And I can speak to the fact that two of us being in the same business in small Jamaica, there is always this one hand wash the other concept between us. So we have no clue or understanding about what it means to be envious, because again, in this field, you can find petty jealousies, petty envy that makes absolutely no sense, because there is room enough for everyone. There is
you see, because it is you, I just feel like my hair feels tight. My hair feels tight, so
love it. Yes, let the locks flow, Mrs. Let the locks flow. That's beautiful. Never before seen on screen, Joan Andrea Hutchinson.
Mosquito bite in my forehead, Lord of mercy. Why the mosquito them like me? I don't know why.
Because they just love your realness and what you bring to the table when it comes on to our Jamaican cultural art form.
There's a point that I want to do, because you know the person and I know the person, and I'll tell you how this poem was inspired. Never Willoughby. Never Willoughby died. I listened to everyone talk about how wonderful he was, and he was such an amazing human being. And I said to myself, I wonder how many of us took the time during his life to say to him, hey, you're a wonderful person, you enrich my life. And so I wrote this poem called Me Just Love You. So much are we afraid to use the L word, it make we insecure. But after me see my friend dead one day, me go use it little more. You love me because you enrich me, love you because you enrich my life. Me love you, this is no hype. Me love you whether day or night. Me love you, me just love you. Me love you, you give of yourself freely. Me love you, you ever dead it for me. Me love you, and me will tell the world gladly. Me love you, me just love you. My world is better, sake as I know you. Your wonderful ways, the little things you do. So from this heart, solid, pure, and true, me love you. they just love you. I'm tell people, listen, no matter wait till my body cool and be gone 6'6" under to come on my funeral. Come, oh, Joe, you were such a nice lady. I like. Tell me now. Me can't hear it then. Tell me now.
Yes.
And so I am into saying to people, hey, you enrich my life. I may not talk to you every day, but you enrich my life. Yeah, that's what we need to do.
I believe, yes, I couldn't agree with you more. Neville Willoughby was one of the most wonderful, wonderful broadcasters to me in my life.
Yeah.
As a young broadcaster, when I just started to work at Radio Jamaica, he was the one who was always promoting my programs wherever I'm on. He actually inspired me to become the type of interviewer I am. Because remember, he had that late night show. I think it was Pipeline, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yes, I forgot about that.
And the way he spoke to people with the utmost respect. I'll never forget when the first Matrix movie came out, he said to me, hey, Tot, have you seen the Matrix? Boy, I tell you, the show bad no bitch.
Oh, wow.
That's
Ooh,
how he would speak. And I was always bowled over how this very crisp and wonderful professional would just talk to me ordinary, like I'm just as important as he is. Ralston McKenzie was also the same. And I would be in such awe. And I'm like, oh my God, you people are fantastic. So they kept my heart up. Even the other day, I was thinking about Alan Magnus. Some mornings I would come in for Doreen Samuel's Daily Departed. And I remember this particular morning I came in and I was very sad. I was having some issues. I was very sad that morning when I came in. And I was so sad I couldn't catch the arm of the record player, the needle, before it fell off, before the song ended. Alan Magnus noticed what was going on and he just rushed right over and he did it for me in that moment. I was so grateful to him. I told him thanks. And maybe he don't even remember that. But for me, that was a very pivotal moment because here I was. We are normal. We are human beings. We have emotions. Yes, as radio announcers, performers, poets, actors, actresses, we do have our times when we just need a little help from someone who's right there. So yes, I agree with you. We need to give people their flowers while
Indeed,
they are here. How many books it is that you say you have written now, Joan? Do you remember?
Well, I have 3 published books, 7 CDs, and I have about 6 or 7. Today I saw you write me something saying that you have 6 books that you're working on, and the number for me is 6 also. I also have 6 half-finished books. I just noted it the other day. I said 6, exactly 6 half-finished books that I'm committed to completing, like in the short term. And it's funny, I mean, I have some things that I've written, you know, there's a young man whose name is Hassani Semaj. He's the son of Lakin and Cecile. And when Hassani was born, I think Hassani is probably 29 now. When Hassani was born, I wrote poems for him. You know, this is my arm, this is my foot, this kiddies, children's poems. And the other day I chanced upon this body of work. So I'm now preparing to do the children's book. Series of songs and poems, and you know, I'm like, wow. So there's just so much I have to do. There's so much more I have to do. You know?
I got you. Now, in the writer world, and I'm gonna come back one evening, and I'm gonna invite you along with a few other folks in the art industry. Across the world, people are living off their writings. They're living off their songs. They're living off all of the creative work that they do. But for some reason, I don't know if it is the multi-dexterous nature of us.
Here, oh, Tatiana, go shame me up on the program now. Here, oh, she going to shame me up on the program. Joan, do you have a YouTube channel? No. Joan, no. Yes, let me answer before she asks a question. Make her answer before she asks a question. Yes.
No, well, YouTube has come long after people like you and I. So it's taken, my son is on me every day. Mom, you need to get this going. Why don't you live stream on YouTube? I'm like, I have other stuff doing. I'm getting to it shortly. Because you see, in the day, we're used to doing things a particular way. Because whether it is a reel and the splicing of that tape, Joan, or it is,
Oh, splicing block. Oh, toughen, you're aging us right there.
I know, right? No, right?
Yeah, splicing block. Oh,
You know,
man.
and until we had to learn to do self-operating. So we can
Mm.
navigate a mixing board, ladies and
Yep,
gentlemen.
indeed,
We know how to do
indeed.
that. We know how to do the faders. But my question really is this. How could we learn to live more from our creative work and not have to do another professional work? Now, I love being multidextrous, yes, but whilst you have other people living off their work, how is it you think we can now live fully off our creative work that's recognized and celebrated?
Yeah. I mean, the question is timely because it's something that I know I now have to do. I have too much work out there, which, I'm not earning from. And guess what? Other people are earning from some of my work. Other people are earning from my work, and I'm not earning from my work. And I have a really big body of work. It's just that, we were not born at the stage where young people were so entrepreneurial. Now, every second young person has a YouTube channel, they're earning money off TikTok. We were not born at that time. And so just, some people have managed to do it, but I just haven't yet, but I know that I need to. And I'm going to, because there's just too much I have. When I think, for example, of my body of work in Jamaican proverbs, I consider myself an expert on proverbs and just the explanation of the proverbs and things. And I really need to be doing something about it. When I started, remember, I started by doing my cassettes, not by the book. The book came later, right? And one of the reasons was I said, I need to document aspects of Jamaican culture for my child. He's now 20. Because if I don't write it down, how is he going to know what this is? So I have a book called Kinti Kiba Heartburn, for example. And in it, I talk about old time Jamaica. I talk about creng creng. I talk about, when we used to fry up the chicken skin to get the fat to fry the chicken. All these things. How would my child know about this unless I document it for him? And so I've been given a talent, and I think I'm found wanting now. God finds me wanting, meaning that I've given you this talent, Joan. You need to do more with the talent. So I know I need to record some more stuff so that even if I don't get on stage to perform, one, I make some money from it, and two, the other people, the younger people, can benefit from it. There are lots of researchers who every year somebody calls me. Oh, I'm coming from Sweden, I'm coming from this country, I want to do some research on Jamaican culture, and they come to me. So, I have a certain amount of respectability in that in the international community when it comes to issues of culture. So I just need to accept it and walk into that greatness.
Mm-hmm. I would want to agree with you
I
wholeheartedly.
can't go on like Kunomuno.
I'll go like hang down near
Right?
anyway. But I've never met anybody before who has performed at the Apollo Theater. I just went to the Apollo Theater last year sometime, and you have performed at the Apollo Theater, Joan Andrea Hutchinson, Jamaican. Tell me about that experience. Tell us, when did that happen? How did that come about?
This would have been so when the whole Bumpy Head Gal thing happened in 1996. At the time I was working at KLS as a news editor. It blew up so much, and I became this performer. Everybody was just, I was hot at the time. And so I started doing international comedy. So at the time, there were only two women in the Caribbean really doing comedy, Nikki Crosby in Trinidad and myself. Later on, people like Deborah Jean-Baptiste and some others came along. Even Black and Bella were not international yet. IT and Fancy were not international yet. Yeah. But from Jamaica, I was the Jamaican. Oliver is in a class by himself. One doesn't even compare himself with Oliver. Oliver's in a class by himself. But I was Jamaican and I was the woman. So I was part of a circuit doing this whole series of Caribbean comedy shows. So in Canada this week, I spent like 3-4 years just on the road, living out of a suitcase. In Canada this week, or you're doing 5 different cities, and you're New York next week, you're still all over. So it was in that period. I can't remember who the producer was who organized it. I think it was a gentleman in Washington who organized it. But myself, Gypsy, I don't know if you know Gypsy from Trinidad. He sings, Captain, the ship is sinking. Right, and he sings this one, Little Black Boy. There was Gypsy, there was Sprang Along, who recently died, Nicky Crosby from Trinidad, Tommy Joseph, Errol Fabian, Paul Keens Douglas. We were touring a lot. So that was the group that performed at the Apollo, and it was really, really good, you know.
Well, look, I tell you, you need to do a memoir, Joan. We need to know how you went from A to B, and you did the entire alphabet. You did the entire alphabet.
Yeah.
You're not quite old yet. No, Faith, we're not that old yet.
You see, unlike most women, and my mother used to tell me all the time, why you love walk and talk your age? I am 59. I'm going to be 60 this year. And I'm so proud of being 59. I walk and tell everybody 59 and loving it.
I love it. I think that we should definitely flaunt that because I believe it is a gift. Off air, I have to tell you a joke about age that someone spoke to me quite derogatorily a couple of days ago, and I keep on repeating it and having a whale of a time laughing. No, it's not for airplay, my fellow YI writers. But you know what? I am so grateful. I'm so grateful for what we have going on here.
Yeah.
So do you have a copy of that In My Heart? I know I had put it on our promo. So I want us to see what it looks like when we go online to get a copy. Okay, there it is. All right, back it up a little bit.
The version that's on Amazon doesn't have these two kids right here. It's just a heart, but it's there's a picture. Oh, there's a picture of me on the front, I think. Yeah. But it's pretty much the same thing. In My Heart, and it's just all Jamaican love poems. Last one, Ram Goat Roses Me Cannot Send You. I know this one I wrote for Miss Lou. This one I wrote for Miss Lou on this, the celebration, I think, of her 60th birthday. Ram Goat Roses Me Cannot Send You, and letter can deliver kiss. I know every day me can get to hug you, but always remember this. Me love you like how craven puppy love cook food, like how careless girl love sleep, like how idle boy love street corner, like how shepherd love him sheep, like how Jesus love the little children them, like how lizard love little in a sun, like how Jamaican love bun bun rice and peas. In other words, me love you can't done. Because you know how Jamaicans love bun rice and peas, right? Rice and the bottom after bun, right? So, But yeah, it's the use of the language. I love using the Jamaican language in this kind of way, And as I say, don't think that it can only be used for rough and coarse concepts. You can talk about love using the Jamaican language, of course. Indeed.
I believe that truly our culture is a gift for us. Our culture, multifaceted as it is, and it has everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. I believe that it really, really trains us to live in this world, to manage in this world, to cope with the vagaries of this world.
Indeed.
It really, really does. And when we get a language, when I was in high school coming up, I couldn't talk patois good. I could not speak patois good for the life of me. And trying, Joan, when I used to hear you do the poems in patois, your poetry in patois, when I used to hear young primary school children reel off Miss Lou's poems in patois, and I tried, I thought I sounded so bad because I didn't patois accent. So I worked at it. I worked at it. But you know what? You're growing up, you're going to school, you grow up, you live certain places, you don't talk patois. Or if you do try to say patois, you know that you're harshly corrected, So it took me a while. So for you to be able to take this street and lane and all over the world.
And code switch. This is the thing. Code switch. You code switch. So you switch according to the demands of your particular environment.
That's why, again, Joan, we need to know how you did it. So I look forward to that memoir. I don't think 90 minutes is long enough for us to walk and talk with you and understand what it means to be a Joan Andrea Hutchinson, what it means to not be governed by fame, but by the sweetness in your heart and the great desires of your heart. When you're not volunteering with an entity like Project Gal, or not dealing with children first, or not dealing with helping out members in your community. I know you don't like when people talk about it, but when you're not busy on the volunteer scene, you're busy working and doing what you need to do and helping other friends out too.
Indeed,
So
indeed,
yes,
yeah,
you look
yeah.
forward.
Part of the chain of giving and receiving, Tatlin, people have been so good to me. People have poured into me and given so much to me that I'm just a vessel through which God is working. And, in the same way God works through me, God couldn't be here to do all the work himself. So what to do? You find some people on earth and say, listen to me, you got to do this for me, you got to do this for me, you got to, and I just feel myself as being, use me, Lord, use me. That's how I feel, use me. And you need to understand, you see even things like prayer talking. Most times, for example, when you're in certain spaces and they start a meeting, in Jamaica, everybody starts a meeting and you have to pray, etc. Most time they don't call me to pray. Most time, because we're going to pray into patwa. And some people cannot manage it. They can father this and father, I'm gonna say, Father God, say a foolishness. I go on inside about God, but you're gonna just make it right. You're gonna start it out, you're gonna break up all the father this and God, you're gonna make it work. People don't like them kind of prayers there, but that's how we pray. God, I'm a party, God, I'm a dupes, I'm a peeps. You understand? I mean, the Bible tell for those who believe, the Bible will tell even the Psalm never tell you, though I will walk around the valley or under the valley or over the valley of the shadow of death. It tell you when walk through the valley of the shadow of death. But even though you walk through it, God's promise to you is that Him will go there with you. When you walk through it, And so this is the way I talk. This is the way I pray. This is where I, So my prayer is not less important because because you see, talking, let me just quickly. I love to talk about the fact that I am more into substance and form because we live in a country, see, where you are judged by the language you speak. And so if you chat patois, somebody thinks, say, you're less intelligent and you're stupid, and I have a serious problem with that.
Yes,
because
ma'am.
you have a church service and every Sunday morning, Brother Jonas pray at church and he say, yes, Father God, thank you, Jesus. But suddenly, this week, you're going to have the Prime Minister or the Governor General or some big wigs coming to your church. And suddenly, Brother Jonas not good enough to pray again. You have to find somebody now who come to church once every 3 months to spoke into the... No, me have a problem with that. You understand? Me love the little people. I love hang out with the little people. I just don't have a lot of ears about me. Me not the ears and things. Me just, what you see is what you get. Me real.
I know, I love it. And I love you for that.
Thank you so
Joan
much.
Andrea, I know you've taken a lot of time out of your evening time,
Out of my sleep time.
out of your sleep time, out of your beauty restoration time to be with us all here on Why I Write. You haven't directly answered the question in one sentence, but you did answer a lot. Why I write. And that's the note on which we're going to wrap up on, because I'm going to let you go so that you can go hit that sack and so on. And you have a lot of questions to answer here and comments to answer here on this thread when you get a chance to. So in wrapping up, why do you write, Joan?
I write because I need to document my society for itself. I need to document what goes on in my people, because if Miss Lou didn't write about her wartime poems, the people who are under 30 now wouldn't even know what went on. They just hear that there was a war, World War I, World War II, that's it. So I want, when you, just like a newspaper, when you take up a newspaper of 10 years ago, you get a sense of what was going on in the society. This is, so when I write poems about the reggae boys, when Merlin Ottey was winning races, I write about Merlin Ottey. When, you write about things in your society, you document the society for itself, just using the vehicles of wit, humor, and poetry. That's what I want to do. So that's why I write, to document my society, but as I said, using the vehicles of wit and humor.
Don't stop writing. Don't stop telling our stories.
I won't.
And truly, we really appreciate you for being here and telling your story with us tonight. And it's just a smidgen, just 90 minutes of that story. Because you have yet to tell us about your trials and tribulations in China, in Japan, and all of that has helped you into being who you are.
Absolutely. So that's why I don't name up myself. When some of your listeners might know, and I'll tell you, me did sleep on street of China people. I did sleep on street when I did get robbed. and I slept on the street in China and I begged for food. Now, when you go through some, and at the time I was at the top of my game, I was a broadcaster in Jamaica, and here am I on the street in China begging for food and sleeping on the street. So when you go through experiences like that, you don't yam up yourself about nothing. Me, yam up myself over people and things. Oh no, life is wonderful, and we just cut and go through.
Listen,
You're beautiful. You're my friend for how many? Over 40 years. Yeah, over 45 years. Man. We
I
don't
tell
look at the
you,
over 45. We don't look at the over 45.
listen,
Yeah.
and we are grateful for that. Joan, thank you
Absolutely.
so much again for the conversation. Thank you for being
Thank you so much too.